Welcome into another week of Every Day We're Covering. Chris Parks, S.J. Munoz with you once again to talk college football as we dive full head of steam into the bowl season. We had a nice weekend of some bowl games. We'll recap how those went and talk about how our picks went. We'll look forward to another really busy slate this upcoming holiday week. And, of course, get you set for some more fun football. But, SJ, not a bad weekend. There were some decent games out there to watch over the weekend.
Yeah, we talked about the challenges and how it's a little bit more tricky to forecast these games and kind of make a good prediction. But at the same time, you also kind of never know what you're going to get as a viewer, so that makes it even all the more interesting. You just throw two random teams in there, kind of like when you're back in the PlayStation days, or maybe still hitting the Xbox or whatever, and just hit that random button and just pick two teams and go to work. And it kind of seems to play out that way sometimes in real life. Just you never know if you're going to get an overtime thriller or just a 40-point blowout. So I guess just stay tuned is the best advice we can give you, and maybe we'll give you a few tips here and make some money.
Yeah, hopefully we'll give you a little bit of insight about some of them that are coming up here this weekend because I understand as a fan and as somebody who's trying to do something like this where we talk about it, there's a lot going on with these games and these teams, and there's so much that changes even week to week sometimes because guys don't wait a while to make a decision whether they're going to play in the bowl game. So it can be tough, but at the end of the day, like we kind of said before, if there's a game on, we're probably going to watch it anyways. So, I mean, you might as well enjoy it. And whether or not it's easy to pick and forecast, yeah, that's another deal. But we're still going to have some fun with it, that's for sure.
One thing you brought up too is just the one thing that kind of, if you can grasp it, is who wants to be there more is kind of thing of the motivation factor. And that part you can't really know until maybe even a couple series in. That's why if you have the advantage of live betting wherever you're listening to this, I encourage in some of these games to take a full advantage of that. Watch a series or two, and then check out the line or see if the spread changes or the totals even. Just if you have that advantage, I understand. Like in my situation, I rarely have that opportunity to be able to bet as the game goes. Just being in a state that's where it's not legal, and I don't with life schedule and other obligations, I just don't have the time to set the sports book, even though God, I'd love to just pull up there at 11:45 before that noon and just plop down and not leave until 7 p.m. It's just not. It's not in the cards most days.
Yeah, yeah, that is a good point. Yeah, if you have that opportunity and that advantage, maybe that's more the route to go if you're really not sure about some of these games. So certainly something to keep in mind for sure. We'll recap all the games here coming up in a moment, but first off, we wanted to have a little fun because some coaches are having some fun, that's for sure, here as we get into the postseason. We've already had a couple of fun rants here already and some post-game pressers. I understand Chip Kelly was a little bit upset the other day about the whole landscape of NIL and paying players and trying to get guys more money and that type of thing, and obviously his situation isn't great, so maybe that's a byproduct of what's going on there. And then Jerry Kill down at New Mexico State had a really fun little rant after his game as well. I don't know. Maybe it's just kind of the end of the year. You maybe get a little more spicy. You're not really worried about the next press conference because you might not have it for a while. So these guys are a little looser in the postseason, it seems like.
Yeah, especially Kill. He was kind of bordering that Dennis Green, Jim Mora territory there, just letting him have it. And he said by himself, quoting him his words. If you listen back or just if you saw it already, he has retirement plans set. So he's not his job security is not number one on his list. It sounded more like a margaritas on a beach somewhere, down south was more his what was on the brain when he was going on this rant. But yeah, like you said, I guess the situations kind of maybe turn up the heat a little bit on coaches, and we spoke especially in the last couple episodes here. Just there's been a lot of as usual. It doesn't seem any out of the ordinary, but just this time of year is always kind of a wacky time of the season of coaches coming and going, and by their decision, and also getting that pink slip as well.
Mm-hmm. The situation with Kill is a little bit different, just because it was involved actually kind of the bowl game setup itself. So we were just talking about this beforehand, and I got a little bit more informed on it as we watch this again. But kind of the scenario is, I guess, there was an incident back when the two teams, New Mexico and New Mexico State, played during the season. And it was an incident that happened at the New Mexico facility where apparently one of the New Mexico State players had urinated in a place he wasn't supposed to, and then the way he says it, Kill, is that he wasn't informed of that incident until a couple months later when the actual game took place, and then. After the game was over, New Mexico State won, of course. There are, and Mexico's a little chapped about that. So then they bring up this other scenario that, hey, this guy did this. It's how disrespectful. He disciplined that player. He thought appropriately, but of course now they're playing in the New Mexico Bowl, so it involves some of the nearby facilities there with the University of New Mexico. There was some issue with trying to get inside to practice indoors because of the weather conditions outside didn't allow him to be out. And apparently the University of New Mexico made that very difficult for New Mexico State to try to figure out and have happen. So he called those kind of things going on by the New Mexico staff chicken shit and did not appreciate it. That's a quote. That's chicken shit. And he felt that he was unfairly treated, which you can understand in that scenario. I mean, at the end of the day, you kind of got to let bygones be bygones, and especially if you're the host site of this thing, it's a little bit different. You probably should let some things slide a little bit.
Yeah, and of course we're just hearing one side of the story, but at the same time, I don't think it would take much for teams of that nature to in-state rivals they wouldn't have to cross too much of a line for them to be like screw them, we're not helping them out any, to hell with them type of deal. And but, yeah, like you said, whatever's true or not true, whatever happened or didn't happen, when you're the host, all that kind of goes out the window. And I mean, New Mexico, no offense, but I mean that's kind of one of those places you're like, I mean, how do they have a bowl game to begin with? So they should be kind of going out of their way to be welcoming and trying to entice people to want to play in this game, not the other way. And some teams might be looking at this and having a pick of two bowls, and they remember this story, whether it's true or not. Yep. They hear this and they say, I'm going to pick this game instead. And I mean, these bowl games are just straight money to these local, communities and areas. That's what it's about, is the economic boost. Why else would you have it? So, yeah, I don't think, regardless of the history and, everything, whatever happened in the past, you got to move on from that when you're hosting like it's still a major event, whether, you want to make fun of how many bowl games there are or not. It's a major event, and cities that have them are lucky to have them.
Yeah. Well, and it's exposure. I mean, that alone itself is a lot of the times the big draw is just you get eyeballs on your area, your community, and you get to showcase it a little bit.
Well, yeah, when you're watching the games, every other one's visit whatever the tourism and that's all it is. So you take a 3-hour long infomercial. I don't think you want to take that for granted at all.
Yeah, and so he kind of went on a little bit more after he said the chicken shit lines, and he didn't feel like he was treated properly, and never he's always been tried to honor himself with class, and I would agree with that. I mean, you've heard numerous stories I think over the years of Jerry Kill being well respected in the profession. He's obviously had some health issues along the way, and everybody was kind of on his side when that happened before. So, but yeah, he said at the end of it, well, this is how it's going to go. I could be on a beach in somewhere drinking a margarita and wishing you all the best life because I'd be having the best of mine. So, yeah, maybe he's
save me a seat. Save me a seat. I'd be next to you if I had. I mean, I don't. If you could do that tomorrow, what are you waiting for,
what's
bro?
Stopping you? Yeah.
There's no need, especially with that type of job we've talked about, the stress and all that crap that comes with it. Like, if you're financially secure, man, just get out of Dodge. But it's easier said than done. I understand that.
Yeah. So that was kind of fun. We had some fun with that. Of course, the other thing that's been going on in the background of all the bowl games is what we talked a lot about last week is the coaching carousel, and then also the portal carousel. And we've had a couple of interesting developments on that front here recently. One of them, of course, involving the school that you follow closely there in Nebraska. It came out that Kyle McCord from Ohio State, who surprised a lot of folks. We talked about last time that he was leaving in the first place. Was really looking at going to Nebraska, and they wanted him to come there. And then news about a day later, almost after that news broke, was that Nebraska was hot on the trail of flipping Dylan Raiola from Georgia back to Nebraska, where a lot of folks thought that he maybe should go in the first place because of obviously he's got a lot of ties there. So sounded more and more like that was going to happen. So kind of you put two and two together, and then maybe Mr. McCord doesn't think that's such a great deal anymore. If there's going to be another guy in the room that's pushing me for potentially, getting that job, and ultimately he decides to not go to Nebraska. It sounds like he's going to end up at Syracuse, but that's how some of these things are going to go. I guess it's going to be kind of weird day by day scenarios. These teams are trying to do what's best for them, and sometimes kids are going to get caught up in the crossfire multiple at the same time.
Yeah, that's kind of the tricky thing with all of this too, because with the how the NIL is set up, and that's a lot in these cases, especially with the transfers of people eligibility left. That's first and foremost. It's a financial deal in most of these cases, and then you're also going to have the in this case especially, it sounds like the father is one of the kind of pulling the strings maybe behind the scenes, which and we've seen it both ways, work out and not work out. So whatever they got to do to get the right fit the right spot, that's fine with them, but it's just like I said, tricky because you hear, especially with how information is distributed and so quickly, online and through social media avenues. It's hard to know what to believe. You got the I don't know if you remember the Sir Yachts of the world back in the day during the Big Ten expansion, or even Chip Brown from a Texas, rival site that was knew everything and had all the answers. It's a lot of it's people giving you information, putting it out there, seeing what the response is, and kind of seeing if anybody bites, or especially when it comes to this financial type of information, they want to see if someone's going to call their bluff, basically,
Mm-hmm.
or if someone's going to match it or exceed it. But yeah, it's tricky. It's interesting. Not exactly my favorite thing to follow, but when it, like you said, affects the team that you're interested in, it you got to kind of pay attention to it. But definitely, until anything's signed or anything's comes from the actual player or the coach, kind of just got to take it for what it is, and
Yeah.
do your best to vet that source and see if it's even worth following.
Yeah, don't believe much is what kind of the rule. Like and of course you got all these psychopaths out there that are following airplane trackers, and you got all this stuff. Yeah, it gets wild. That's for sure.
Everybody's got a cousin, a friend of a cousin, or a golf caddy, or a guy
Yeah,
that works for TSA, and I don't know. I mean, I'm sure you've come across. I don't follow it, but just the retweets or the likes that come up, and the message board geniuses.
oh yeah.
They have just if you didn't know any better, that's just got to be fake, right? But
Hmm.
unfortunately, more so than not, it's a lot of it is actual fans, if you want to call them that. I
Yeah.
suppose it's all we're not the ones. I'm not gonna say I draw the line on what a fan wasn't, but should be a level of common sense that goes along with it. But when it comes when it comes to sports, especially, that's
Yeah.
few and far between.
Yeah, well, and we see this in so many aspects of life anymore too. But it's definitely with this scenario is happening a lot, where you're just going to see guys throw stuff at the wall just to say, "Oh, I was right. Look what I said." Like
Oh,
they don't even know. They're
eventually
just
you're gonna get something,
yeah,
right?
they're
Yeah,
just
like
making stuff up. Yeah,
I was wrong 10 times. I mean, but I was right
I
once.
got this one. Yeah, it's almost like it's almost like it's shifted from. You remember how nutso the realignment stuff was. It's those same guys. They moved on from the realignment to now this NIL, who's getting the players type of thing. So they found something new to latch on to. Yeah, it's annoying. We'll see how that all maybe morphs and changes over time. You got to wonder at some point if there are going to be some more like limitations on contact and visits and communication. That gets hairy too. So we'll see if anything ever morphs or changes over time with that transfer portal scenario. The other thing that is kind of been interesting too here recently on that front is there's been some kind of scuttle in the background too of what is allowed and isn't allowed, with some guys being able to transfer, multiple times, or their second time around. Can they go right away? The courts have even gotten involved. It's been messy, and I think every situation is so different. Sometimes it's hard to even put a set of rules to a certain scenario because they almost never tracks, like it just doesn't follow. But yeah, it's pretty obvious that this is going to come to some sort of organizational, at least agreement. Maybe it's not going to be a necessarily full set of rules because we all know that the NCAA can't really get anything organized ever and enforce it. But maybe the schools themselves that are kind of in this NIL realm are going to be a group of something and have their own kind of set, these are the guidelines per se to follow. And we'll see if that happens.
Well, and that would be my, I guess concern or kind of question for all of it is we've seen just, with medical waivers and red shirts and things of that sort when it comes to an injury or an illness, or the NCAA has never been swift
Mm-hmm.
to grant or decline any of these. So if you're leaving it up to them, like you said, it's going to be another, just waiting game. So how does that even improve the situation that already exists? So yeah, there's going to have to be, with whoever, whatever you want to call it, the power, whatever,
Yeah.
40 or 45, 50 current teams, that they're going to have to just kind of form their own little entity there and kind of go from there, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah, so that whole aspect of it is definitely going to change and be different, this time next year, I'm sure. We'll get into the games now here for you. First off, of course, what happened here this past weekend. Our picks really didn't turn out that bad. I mean, as the day was going on, I was a little disappointed in a couple of them, but overall, we really did okay. As I'm looking at my sheet here, it looks like we got kind of a 5-3 and in a push scenario here across the board for our picks. And of course, a couple of them we were different on them as well, so that factors in. But with the Myrtle Beach Bowl, we got going well. We started the day well with the Ohio Bobcats. They picked up a 41-21 victory, which was pretty impressive considering that their quarterback had entered the portal. They were kind of on second, third string type guys playing that game. And their running game really came through. They played well and picked up the big win, and they were actually getting 3.5 as we had it. So we scored big on that one. Moved on to the New Orleans Bowl. That ended up being a really good game. Went to overtime. Jacksonville State won at 34-31. I had gone with Louisiana, but they were getting 3, so that turned out to be a push on that front. And then we were looking for overs there as well, as what you had called, over 57, and that came to fruition as well. So did pretty well on that ball game. We moved on to the Cure Bowl. And that one was an absolute mess. I don't know if you saw any of this, but it was just a torrential downpour. They had like a bunch of paint in the middle of the field for the logo, and it turned into a giant like swamp of paint and mud. And yeah, it was ugly. And we were looking for Miami of Ohio. Or actually both of us, to stay within 5.5. Well, it worked out. 13-9 was the final. It didn't really put up a lot of points in that game, but App State wins it. But Miami of Ohio does stay within to cover. It's always kind of fun to watch some of those games, as annoying as it is, because it's not really a real football game, but just the comedy factor is kind of fun to keep an eye on.
Yeah, it looked a little dicey too, but in this case, the weather played in our factor. It just kind of kept maybe the offenses at bay and made it a closer game. More obviously, I didn't have any indication that any type of weather like that, because that wasn't just your everyday
Yeah.
variety thunderstorm. That was some serious downpour. So yeah, like you said, I can imagine just being like, of course, you're still going to play the game, and obviously they, both teams were competitive, and I would say they both came ready to play. But can you imagine this? You're getting all amped up for this bowl. Usually nice weather places, or
Yeah.
you're going to get, if not, you're in inside, indoor stadium. But not in this case. They had to battle of the elements, and I suppose that's what a lot of football fans like to watch anyways, because that's kind of part of the game.
Mm-hmm. Well, especially where they were. This was in Orlando. Like, it was supposed to be nice. Like, what's going on here? This is terrible.
Mickey Mouse can't help you with everything. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no kidding. Maybe Disney may have phoned in a call there.
Mhm.
Well, then we moved on to that New Mexico Bowl that we already touched on. It did not work out for New Mexico State, by the way. They got thumped by Fresno 37-10. So we were wrong on that one on both fronts. I had New Mexico State. We were looking for overs in that game, too, and that did not hit. So that was a rough one. I was kind of surprised by that. It was one of the games where I thought, New Mexico State had a really good season, but it was one of those scenarios, too, where they necessarily haven't been there a lot either. This is a program that's been turned around by Jerry Kill. They were one of the worst teams in the country, 5-7 years ago, so they've made a big turn, but Yeah, Fresno came to play. I give them credit. They were hitting on all cylinders from the outset and won that game pretty easily.
Well, had we known their players were pissing all over the place, maybe we would have we might have went a different direction. But
Yeah, no doubt.
usually you're not relieving yourself in public settings unless you're doing something else. Which I'm not saying we often have a cold beverage, but you're typically
Yeah,
under some. I'm not
some
making
kind of
any claims here,
influence.
but usually you're not of sound mind when you're using the facilities without a facility.
Yeah, I mean, unless it's a absolute emergency kind of
Yeah, yeah,
scenario.
yeah, yeah.
But
So,
I
yeah.
don't think this was. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, they pissed on stuff and then they pissed the game away too. Uh, we had the L.A. Bowl. Hosted by Gronk, by the way, in case you didn't see that. I don't know what that was about,
Yeah.
but UCLA was the winner, 35-22 over Boise, and that's where we went with that one. So we got that one right. They were just given 2 points in that game. We're able to kind of, it was close early, and then they pulled away. Then the Independence Bowl was the nightcap, and Texas Tech laid the whooping down. 34-14 was the final. I had Tech. SJ was trying to get one with a little bit more bonus points there with Cal on the money line. It didn't quite work out. That was another one. It was kind of tight early, but you could sense that Tech was going to pull away, and they did. They just kept the offense kind of churning a little bit. And another scenario too, where they had a quarterback that hadn't really played all year, but he came in and played pretty well. So always interesting to see those games. And we talked about that game too last time, and I have to give them credit. Field looked nice. It looked nice down there in
Yeah.
Shreveport. They did a good job putting that together.
Yeah, but judging by the garb of the attendees, though, it might have been a little chilly. But I mean,
Yeah.
this time of year that you can't really prevent that. But watching that game is kind of like this happens a lot in bowl season too. You kind of watch a team play, and you're like, how did they only win 7 games?
Yeah.
Obviously, the quarterback was a different deal, but at the same time, it's like it seemed like they had talent, a lot of talent, especially at receiver, which that program's known for having players at that position. But that was kind of my biggest takeaway. Like you said, it was close early and competitive, and then kind of got away from Cal and Tech just kind of took over. But that was basically the biggest thing I noticed. Just seemed like they should have been a little bit better than maybe a 7-win outfit. But
Yeah.
mistakes, turnovers, things like that. Just I know they had a few close games as well. So
Yeah, well, and I can see why they were. A lot of people had them as a big dark horse team in the Big 12 early before the season. I can see that with the talent on the field. They got a lot of good young guys too, so they're probably going to be a pretty solid team come next year. It'll be one to watch, that's for sure, and see how that all plays out with their quarterback scenario and all that. So that was the games we had here last week that we know about so far. Of course, we already had talked about the game that's going to take place on Monday night on last week's show. So if you want to go catch that, you can go back and listen to that one and catch our picks there on the Monday night contest. But since this program will come out on Monday, we wanted to have that one on last week's, and now we'll start with moving on from there. So we're going to get into those picks here for you. And by the way, that game on Monday is the famous Toastery Bowl, in case you're wondering. Old Dominion, Western Kentucky are playing in that one. It's a 1:30 afternoon game on a Monday, so if you can, I guess, get away with not doing some work at your desk, there you go. You got something to watch for a while on Monday. The next one's going to be on Tuesday afternoon, and actually evening.
it's my kind of bowl here coming up. I like this sponsor.
Yeah, December 19th, we've got the Frisco Bowl down in Frisco, Texas. And this is always an interesting one. Who is the title sponsor? Did you catch that?
Yeah, I'm gonna verify here. I don't want to speak out of turn. I was like, I just blew it up. Yep, the Scooters Coffee.
Oh, okay.
My
Okay.
good man. So that's right up at kind of Omaha area.
Yeah.
Headquartered out of there. But I love me some Scooters Coffee. We got some locales down here, so I'm with that.
Yeah, well, apparently they must be reaching pretty far down south then if they're sponsoring a game in Frisco, Texas.
Like what's
yeah.
up with the what is it called now? It's not TD Ameritrade anymore. What's it? Charles Schwab. Why can't they play there? That's right down the road. They play in Yankee Stadium. They can play the damn bowl game in.
Exactly.
I mean, that's your hometown. That's your headquarters. You're based right out of there.
Yeah.
Come on, Scooters.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not such a fan of this game.
Figure it out. But yeah, they got themselves a coffee sponsor. So a highly caffeinated Tuesday night. UTSA and Marshall. UTSA is an 11.5-point favorite against the Thundering Herd. 52.5 right now is what I have as the number on this one. I guess I'll fire away at this one here first, if you don't mind. I
No,
was
go ahead.
reading into this a little bit. Well, and UTSA has been a program, obviously, that's been hot for the last few years. Their coach has been a hot, sought after commodity as well. He has not bolted as of yet. They were kind of worried about that, and that's some people's thoughts were, well, maybe they had that in the back of their mind when they blew it in the conference title game. But now they're maybe kind of going to bounce back. Their quarterback, Frank Harris, seems like he's played college football for a decade. This guy's been there forever, and he's been really good for a long time. I can see why they're that big of a favorite. I know that's a big number, but they're in their home state, going to be motivated. I like UTSA to cover this 11.5 and take the win. So that's where I'm going with this one.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to. We'll be on the same one here to start off at least for the week. I mean, being like you said, was 4 hours away from basically, essentially,
Uh-huh.
you're not too far from your home campus there, and I just think they'll have too much offense. Marshall's not gonna be able to hang with them. Maybe kind of be like that. Maybe that Caltech type game where it's maybe a 7 point game at half, and then just eventually kind of wear them down. I think the motivation will be higher for San Antonio, and also I just think they're just a better team. 11 with 11 and a half.
Yeah, that's what I got.
That's a little high, but and in these bowl games, they can get away from you quick. And I mean, a couple touchdowns wouldn't be that surprising.
Yeah. Well, and it's weird in these games. It either seems like it's like so close that you're thinking this might go to overtime, or it's a blowout. It's just never
Yeah,
in
yeah. There's
between.
no in between so far. Yes.
But yeah, definitely so far that's been what's going on. So then we move on from there to Thursday night. So we're missing Wednesday. Then we go to Thursday, the 21st, and we've got the Boca Raton Bowl down there in FAU Owl Country. That's where they play this, is at FAU's stadium. And a team from not too far away, South Florida, will be in the contest. They're taking on Syracuse. Syracuse right now is a 3-point favorite. 61.5 is the number. Well, what are you thinking here, SJ?
I know they're going through a few changes from notably head coach. Of course, we talked about it. Quarterback transfer they're getting that obviously won't be playing in this game in McCord.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think Syracuse can cover that 3 points. I know maybe a bit of a enemy territory. I just think over the long haul this season they've been a little bit better team. I could see within 10 points or so. But like we said, it's either going to be a close game or a blowout. I'd probably lean towards that close game, and I think Syracuse can squeak out maybe a touchdown win or maybe a little bit under that. But I do think they'll cover that 3 points.
All right. I think I'm going to go the other way here on this
All right.
one. And part of this is just silly bias because Alex Golish is the head coach down there at South Florida, and he's a former Iowa State staffer. He was a offensive coordinator for a while under Matt Campbell, moved on to Tennessee, and then now got the head gig there at South Florida. He's turned them around. They're playing pretty good. One game I did watch them play earlier this season, they did kind of struggle. They were a team that started the season like really, really well. I mean, if folks remember, they played Alabama pretty tough early on in the season. Then they kind of struggled down the stretch, so that does worry me a little bit. But their quarterback, Byron Brown, he's got over 3,800 yards of offense, kind of a dual threat type of guy. So I think that maybe makes a little bit of a difference for him. I think this will be a close game, so it's probably going to be tight either way. But I'm going to go with South Florida to be able to stay within that 3. Friday, December 22nd, we've got one that night as well. The Gasparilla Bowl. This is for all you Pirate fans down there. Raymond James Stadium, home of the Buccaneers. Central Florida is laying 4.5 against Georgia Tech. And the number is pretty high. 66.5 is the total here for this one. This is going to be an interesting game. Central Florida has been kind of up and down. They've played some really good games, and they have played some absolute turds this season, too. If you remember a few weeks ago, they up and shocked Oklahoma State by absolutely pounding them when they came to town. Their running back, R.J. Harvey, is pretty good. He finished the year with 6 100-yard games. He was kind of on a roll there down the stretch, and I think that's what makes a difference here. I'm going to go Central Florida to cover that 4.5.
Again, we agree. I'm with you there, and more just kind of like what you talked about playing a team tough. For the most part, yeah, Central Florida let us down a couple times, but in most of the big games, they kind of were a thorn, at least in my side, of covering big spreads too.
Mm-hmm.
And making a close game like against Oklahoma is one that pops into my mind.
Yeah.
Earlier this season, so I just think they're a little bit more potent offensively. Georgia Tech, made they themselves had a couple of good games down the stretch there, hanging with Georgia, kind of putting a little bit of a scare into people there at the end of the season, and then even a win over Syracuse there on the end of the season. So and also beat North Carolina when they were ranked. So they had a couple big wins too. I just think Central Florida is a little more weapons offensively, and that might be the difference there. Kind of a late touchdown to cover that number there.
Yeah, I could see this being a really high scoring game. Now that
Mhm.
over number, I don't know, that's pretty
Yeah, that
big
was
to get
yeah,
to,
it was
but
a
still.
little yeah, even
But I can
even
see it
for
getting close.
teams
Yeah.
of that.
Well, then we move to Saturday, and this is when it gets hot and heavy. There's all kinds of football on Saturday here for bowl games for you. We'll start it off with a couple of 11 a.m. games. I'm going to do this one first here. So, if you're looking at a schedule, a couple of these might be on your sheet a little bit different, swapped in order, just depending on how the site listed it. But the Camellia Bowl down there in Montgomery, Alabama, Arkansas State laying a point, taking on Northern Illinois. What are you thinking here, SJ?
Well, they're not making it easy on you with that
No.
1 point spread there. So once I seen that, I said, okay, we not even thinking about that. Um, I kind of just gonna basically going off recent history and just like the unfamiliarity. I kind of look back and don't have obviously a big history of games against one another. So a lot of times I think that lends itself more to whether it be a defensive battle or just a lack of offense. I think that's going to be the case. Could still be a good game. Not saying it won't be, but I'm gonna take the unders on that one. I didn't I got 53.5. I'm not sure what number you were getting for the total.
Yeah. Yep. That's what I
Okay,
got.
okay. So yeah, I'm taking the under 53.5 on that one. Just like I said, 1 point's just not enough to either way. It's just and basically just give them your money in an envelope and say thank you. See you next time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good play. I think I'll ride with you on that one. I would say um, if I'm going to play this, I'm going to go Arkansas State. Northern Illinois is, the way I understand it, a little bit thin at the receiver position. They've had some injuries, and then a guy I think that has left in the portal. Their quarterback is an Iowa boy, Rocky Lombardi. He's from the Des Moines metro
Man,
area.
talk about another guy still playing.
I
That's
know.
not being his 7th or 8th year because I remember Michigan State and that was 3 or 4 years
Yeah,
ago.
yeah, he's been around a
Jeez.
while for sure. I think he had a year maybe where he was injured and he ended up
Hmm.
sitting out. So, but yeah, I like Arkansas State as the team to pick in that game, but I'm going to go with you. I think the play here is to go to the unders. It's going to be a tough one scoring wise. Then we go to we're going to stay in the state of Alabama. The state of
Yeah, can you,
how do they have so many bowl games?
yeah, when you said that, I was like, they have two.
They've got another one coming up after
Oh
that
my
too.
gosh.
Yeah,
I don't know. Like,
it's going to be a
I
big
could see
day.
if you had something, I know they got a little bit of coast and beach, if you want to call it
Yeah.
that. I mean, it's ocean, so whatever. I mean, more ocean than I'm next to, but yeah, that's real surprising. That might have been an over under I missed out on. How many bowl games does Alabama have? I would have definitely went under. It could have been one.
Yeah.
I knew they had one.
Yeah, they got three in
It's
the
the first
same
two.
day. The same day. Uh, yeah, so we're in Birmingham now here for this one. I don't even know what the stadium is in Birmingham, but Troy is laying 8 against Duke in this game. 44.5 is the number, so they're not liking the total that much either. This is a fun one, I think, to look at just because there's so much going on with both these teams. They both have lost their coaches. They're both gone, different places. Of course, Duke has also lost their quarterback, who, well, didn't necessarily play half the season either because he was hurt on and off, Riley Leonard. Sounds like he's going to be there at Notre Dame. But Duke has really been gutted by the portal, too. Not just Leonard. They've had a few other guys that have left. I was on them for a long time. I liked the way that they played in some big games early in the year, but it seemed like as the year went along, whether it was just getting wore down or what was happening, they weren't playing up to their standard anymore, and it just kind of went downhill as the season trucked along. Troy has gotten better as the season has gone along, and I'm not going to necessarily play this just because I don't love the 8. If it was a little lower, I think I would actually play Troy because I think they're going to be the motivated team in this game. But I'm going to go over. Since that number is so low, and you just have a lot of wild card factors. I think defenses are going to be a little bit, kind of off kilter. It's one of those weird type of games where you might get a few fluke scores just because of mistakes. So I'm going to go over that 44.5 as my play here.
Yeah, because of all the things you mentioned, I was leery to pick one side or the other, just because I mean you spelled it out there. It's just a lot of uncertainty, even
Mm-hmm.
more so than in a lot of cases. But you mentioned that big number, and that's kind of what stood out to me. Is 8 points is a lot to get in a bowl game, and especially when if you look at recent history and just kind of even this season, Duke kind of been the bigger name, so to speak, and for
Yeah.
them to be +8 there is it's a little bit too much for me to turn down. I would not be surprised if they lose. I think they can keep it within a touchdown though,
Mm-hmm.
and cover that number. So it's basically more about the size of the spread than it is. When anytime I can see a number that big and rationalize it in my head, I'm going to play it, and
Mm-hmm.
I'll be willing to kind of lick my wounds if I have to. It's worth a shot there in
Yeah.
my mind.
All right, so that's a couple of 11 a.m. kickoffs there in the state of Alabama at the same time. We'll have one here in just a moment, but another one that's kicking off at 2:30 in the afternoon would be the famous Idaho Potato Bowl out there on the old Smurf turf there in Boise. Utah State is a 1.5 point favorite against Georgia State, and the number is 61.5, so fairly high here for these two teams. I don't know. This is another interesting one to try to take a look at here.
We talked about that monsoon earlier, and a lot of times, the Smurf turf's a little bit, almost a sheet of ice, not being slick, but it's cold. You get a little snow, and that doesn't exactly, correlate to big numbers and a lot of offense. So
Hmm.
so that total, I'm going the unders on that. That's what stands out to me. I'm not going to claim to know enough about either of these teams throughout the season. I've seen them a couple times here and there, just on a random game, but I don't have too much confidence either way to lean one way or the other. That's not exactly a great margin there of victory. So I'm going to stick with that total, and I think it's going to go the unders. Basically, just kind of weather and conditions is basically leaning me that direction of what the game could be.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. I'm going to go same direction as you. Same kind of reasoning and thought process. Just not great conditions, especially for a Georgia State team that's not going to be used to playing much in that type of atmosphere and elements. They are on a 5 game losing streak as well. Georgia State, by the way. And the portal, I understand, has hurt them quite a bit. So these are going to. And Utah State really is not a team that's known for putting up tons and tons of points. So I think, yeah, staying with the unders here is the right way to go on that one. We move on to the Armed Forces Bowl. This one is in Fort Worth, played at the Amon Carter Stadium there of TCU's home field. It's a 2:30 kickoff as well on Saturday. James Madison, a 2.5 point favorite against Air Force, and the number is 41.5. And there are two things that I kind of like here. I think I would probably double up on the play here on this one
Okay.
because number one, Air Force is a team that, what do? They run the football. They love to run the football. That's pretty much all they do. James Madison, number one ranked rush defense in the country this season. And they, of course, are very motivated to be in the postseason because we all know about how that worked out for them in Jacksonville State. We weren't necessarily supposed to be allowed to play, but it worked out and they needed teams. And James Madison had a really, really fun season, got to host game day one week. So they're motivated. Obviously, they've lost their coach. He's moved on to Indiana, so there's some uncertainty there. But it sounds like most of their players are on board because I've heard that there are a couple of guys that are in the portal, but they've even said that they're going to still play in the bowl game. The school's going to work with them to do that. So that's cool. I like
Yeah.
that. So I'm going to go James Madison as the play, laying the 2.5, and then I would also probably go with the unders here too, because I don't expect Air Force to score much at all with that type of matchup you've got going there. And then with James Madison, yeah, if you're a little bit uncertain on a couple of things, it might be a little bit shaky here or there, organizational wise, play calling with a different coach. So even though it's a low number, I'd still probably go that way. So that's kind of the two things I would do here.
Yeah, even people that kind of they do betting on a regular, just looking at odds or whatever. You kind of come across them, and you're like, you see something like what, and then it's either a good what or a bad what. In
Hmm.
this case, is that 2.5? I said, I'm right away. That's I didn't when you don't have to think about something. There's you just have to play it. I'm
Hmm.
not guaranteeing anything. Obviously, nothing's guaranteed. who knows what's going to happen. And it's a Air Force always kind of like you said, it's that really unique style that you just don't see a lot. Kind of when you're playing Georgia Tech. We used to do the option offense for a while,
Mhm.
even just like Navy too, even or when Maryland used to run the Maryland Eye and things of that sort. It's so odd and unusual that sometimes you catch people and maybe for a quarter or two, even a whole game, you can kind of keep competitive. So yeah, I could see the unders hitting too, but I'm just gonna stick with that straight Madison to cover that 2.5. Doesn't seem like that big of an ask.
Yeah. All right, we're going to go on here to the evening session, and the whatever this is, the 68 Ventures Bowl,
Oh, oh,
and
yeah, we
here's the
talked about the names. It's like it's no offense to the
oh yeah,
you gotta get your money and stuff. It's so hard to even know like what would this be about. Like
uh-huh.
it's
Yeah,
you
you're
think
trying to
when
even
you have
think,
an
yeah,
event of this magnitude, you want it to be like when you say the name, like oh I think of like when you said the Potato Bowl, I think of
uh-huh.
Idaho. So that makes sense,
Yeah,
right?
uh-huh.
But I mean, I'm sure there's some behind it. Maybe we'll look into that after the
Yeah,
show.
it's a real estate
Oh,
investment firm.
oh,
Oh
I
boy.
already don't like it.
I hate it. Uh, but here's our third Alabama. This is in Mobile,
Yeah.
Alabama. So third one of the day, and at least it's a different time, so they're not all playing at the same time. But and it features a team from the state. South Alabama is a 15.5 point favorite against Eastern Michigan, and 46.5 is the number here in this ball game. What are we thinking here, SJ?
Yeah, well, I mean, Eastern Michigan, a couple of times they really let us down. I saw that big number. I was like, oh man, I think they could maybe cover it, but then those old memories were haunting me, and I couldn't pull the trigger. And I could see them, especially being a South Alabama being in its home state. That I think that always is worth. No matter what, it's got to be worth a few points, just because the travel's a little easier. Of course, you're probably gonna have more family and friends there, more alums, more than likely because it's easier to get there. So I think that always kind of factors in as well. Of course, Eastern Michigan's probably gonna be super excited to maybe get a little bit of sunshine and not a couple feet of snow over the Christmas break. So I'm sure that'll get them going. But I think the only thing to go with is the number there, and I'm actually going to hit the overs just because I do fear it could end up getting away from them. Maybe give up a 45 or a 50 spot, end up maybe losing by 15 to 20. So that's why I didn't want to play that 15 points because I was
Mm-hmm.
like I could see him being right in it, and then fourth quarter give up two late touchdowns, and
Yep.
and it's another kick of the nuts. So I wouldn't really take that risk. So I'm gonna go the overs on that.
Yep, we're going to shake hands on that one. That's exactly what my thought process was. I think there'll be some points scored. South Alabama's done a pretty good job of that this year. They do have a couple of question marks as far as players because they've lost a running back to the portal, and another guy as well. I think that's kind of questionable, so that might hurt them a little bit. But yeah, I think both these two teams can put up points, so that's where I'd go with that number being it's fairly low there at 46.5. All right, before we get into the last two here, I got to right or wrong because I realized that I didn't even do this when we started, but we always talk about what we're sipping on here during the podcast, and I skipped right over that whole segment, so we've got to make that up here for you.
Either you
And
were sipping too fast or not sipping fast enough, one or the other, or maybe you had to go piss somewhere they weren't supposed to piss. So
exactly,
that could have been. It could have been. I don't know.
I,
You did go off camera for a second. I'm not gonna make any claims, but
I was too excited to talk about Jerry Kill saying chicken shit. So
yeah, that gets us. Anytime any coach or player, whatever, anybody says chicken shit, we're probably gonna talk about it. That's
exactly,
an underused phrase, I think, these days.
yeah. True. Yeah, I'm gonna work that back in the lexicon here. Uh, so I pulled. Now that I'm almost done with it, but I pulled this one out of the pack. I know I gave a shout out to this brewery here, actually a couple weeks ago, but this is kind of one of those old standbys. Or I guess not necessarily a standby, but one of those classics that maybe you remember if you grew up in our age frame. I think you probably know this one at some point. The fine folks at Line and Kugels, I had talked about the toasted Bach in this little pack that I had before. Well, one of them that they kind of brought back here recently that kind of went away for a while is the old Sunset Wheat. if folks remember this one, a lot of folks would refer to it as the Fruity Pebbles beer because it's kind of got a real pretty strong fruit flavor. It's blueberry and citrus all mixed together. But one of those, it brings back some memories. So I pulled that one out and said, I'm going to give the old Sunset Wheat a little shout out. How about yourself?
That sounds pretty good. I haven't had that before, so I have to do that. I know. I don't know. I gotta. I don't have any good feels towards that state, so I try not to give them any type of funds. But if you say so, I might give them
That's
a
true. I'm kind
couple
of pissed
bucks
at the
here right
Packers
now.
right
Yeah,
now. So
yeah. um, well, two things here before I tell you what I'm drinking on. I actually, of course, kind of getting into the holiday treats a little bit this year, and that's part of the reason why. The other part is you love them, but the dang kids could become outbreak monkeys this time of year. So got a bit of a cold earlier this week, so I haven't been doing much this week. So I just went with the straight Mick Ultra,
there you
partly
go.
just to be easy drinker. Should be on the golf course, feels like.
Yeah, there you go.
But that easy drinker, and also just easing back in the drinking. Also, I mean, you got holidays, you got to watch your calories where you can, because who's gonna say no to those damn cookies that come in that blue tin?
Oh, I know.
I don't know if those things, man. I just get them away from me because it's gonna be gone by then. If I open it and get them out of my hands, because it's gonna
Yeah,
be gone. I'm not gonna turn down a glass of eggnog. So
yeah.
got to watch my calories where I can this holiday season.
That makes a lot of sense. Folks coming into the office and they're
Yeah.
bringing
Oh,
this and that and the other thing. And I got handed a cup full of puppy chow the other day, and it's like, well,
well,
100% I'm eating this. Like, I'm not going to not eat it. So.
well, and even if they might be like, oh, I'm not really that hungry, or like it's good, but then you're kind of like the a hole if you like turn
Yeah.
stuff down too, So you kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. But yeah, I guess this helps my mind a little bit. Feel like I'm drinking something a little lighter.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, all the ads are about people playing sports and stuff, right?
Yeah, so
So
it's got to be good for you. Yeah,
gotta
there's
be
no
great.
on TV. It's got to be true.
Exactly. Uh, so here's the nightcap. We're gonna finish it off here with a couple of them, and this first one. I kind of like this game. This will be interesting to see how this plays out. The old Las Vegas Bowl out there in the brand new Death Star Allegiant Stadium. 6:30 p.m. contest on Saturday night. Utah is laying 6.5 against Northwestern. So this is actually, as I was reading through some of the comments on the games, this is the first bowl game that features two Power Five teams that both have winning records. So they finally get a matchup that maybe is a little bit more interesting on the slate. 41.5 is the number. Where are we at here? Am I going first on this one, or are you? I don't remember. I think I
I
am.
could take it. Don't matter.
Go for it.
All right. Well, kind of a little bit bittersweet game to me. I had this marked on my calendar of hopefully going to this one, being as Nebraska had a shot going there, and then
Uh,
also I have family that lives in that area. My brother lives out in Henderson, so I was like, oh, could be a 2-for-1, have a hell of a time, and I actually was able to hit the Pro Bowl last season over it. So like I've been to that stadium, and of course it should be. It's brand new and it's a lot of money invested. But that's one hell of a stadium. Like it is pretty amazing. As far as prices go, for we've talked about how much concessions and stuff, like it's about, I think, maybe 12 to 13 bucks a beer, which for NFL stadiums,
yeah,
and
that's pretty
I
good.
mean you're getting the tall boy too, like it wasn't bad at all. Like I was kind of surprised by that, especially when you're in Vegas. You're thinking, oh,
Yeah,
it's going to be $20
raked over
for
the
a
coals.
freaking
Yeah,
12, little freaking them little freaking airplane bottles. Gonna be $20, like, but back to the game. Maybe it's kind of caught up in the moment because they did have a good season. I don't necessarily care for this school either, but I think that's 6.5. I think that's pretty big, especially with the injuries that Utah's had, especially at quarterback. I think I could see them definitely winning. I could also see a blowout. This is a little bit out on a limb for me, about as risky as I'm going to get this week. I think Northwestern can cover that number. Don't necessarily expect them to win, obviously. If you want to, kind of be a little wacky, it might be a game to, probably get a pretty good plus number on the money line there. But I would say play Northwestern, getting the points, but probably expect Utah to maybe eke out a field goal win. I think it could be definitely one of the better games here of that day, and maybe of the whole weekend here.
yeah, I don't disagree, but I am going to disagree on who I'm picking. I'm going to go the other way. I like Utah, especially since it stayed under a touchdown. I think that they can win by a touchdown, and then that would get them home with that 6.5. If it was a little bit higher, yeah, then I would probably give Northwestern the crack. But this is one of those games too where maybe I'm wrong as far as the motivation factor goes, because Northwestern certainly is going to want to be there and play. Just the way that everything's shook out for them over the year, and obviously they're fired up for their coach getting the head job and all that. So that could play a factor. But I think Utah's just so tough. They're deep. They've
Yeah.
proven over and over again. They've lost quarterbacks here and there, and they just keep finding guys that come in and still play good football. Their defense is always really good. This is gonna be a fun game, but I'm gonna go Utah there on that one.
I think this is one of those that you'll kind of know from maybe the at most first quarter how it's going to play out.
Yeah,
We'll be able to tell right away if Utah's bust them in the mouth and they're up 10 or 14 by the end of the first. I'm ripping up that damn ticket.
Yeah.
But if they're within a touchdown at halftime still, I think they got a shot to hang around.
Yeah, it is one team I will say that I'm not real excited about their fan base joining my conference, because they've been pretty damn annoying so far on the interwebs. But they'll probably be one of the favorites coming in next year as one of the top teams. So I guess I got to give them credit for that. But we'll hopefully deliver them a couple of nut punches down the road. Yeah. The last one of the night is, of course, one that's in that old other time zone, the Hawaii Bowl out in Honolulu. A good old 9:30 p.m. kickoff for us fine folks here in the Midwest. Get you get all lathered up during the day and try to see if you hang on.
From the day before, from early in the day. Save you, get one drink in the morning, save you one for the evening. There's an Irish coffee by the time you hit that Hawaii Bowl.
There you go. San Jose State's laying 10 against Coastal Carolina. 53.5 is the number. And this is one of those, if you didn't know anything and you just looked at it, you'd be like, what in the heck is going on here? Because Coastal's a team that's got a pretty good reputation this last few years. But their quarterback, Grayson McCall, has entered the portal. He will not be playing in this game. They're on their third string quarterback, actually, because their second stringer also has entered the transfer portal. San Jose State's on a heater. They've won 6 straight. I know they bit us in the butt a few weeks ago. We had UNLV against them wanting to win that day, and UNLV took it on the chin. So I'm going to give the old, what is it, the Spartans? Is that what it is? San Jose State?
Yeah,
Spartans. Give the Spartans the credit. I'm going to go. I think they're going to cover the 10 just because there's so much going on with Coastal. I think that they win this one and pull away in it.
Yeah, I'm gonna see your cover, so I'm gonna go a double dip here, like you did earlier. So I guess it's allowed. We both gonna do it here, and then I'm also gonna take the overs because I think they're gonna put up a pretty big number there. And I mean, Coastal could probably still manage 10 to 14 points, but I could see a 40 spot from San Jose State. So I think that it's gonna be a high scoring game, maybe not a back and forth, but it could still be interesting at some points there. And especially late night football, you kind of expect no less.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of comes with the territory. It seems like even when I was half expecting Cal to make a run there last night. At some point they had a couple chances here and there with a punt or with a turnover or miscue, but just weren't able to kind of get over the hump there. But it kind of seems to always happen when you get those late kickoffs, especially being in Hawaii, because if you can't be excited to travel there and play in the game, you need to check your damn pulse or you're pissing on too much stuff. I don't know. Something's wrong with you.
Well, you gotta figure out who's gonna have too much fun at the luau too. So
that's too much of that freaking stuffed pig, man. That's not good for anybody.
That roast suckling pig on the beach. It's gonna be it'll be a fun game to hopefully cap off the day. So that's what we've got here for you for this upcoming next week. There is a little bit of a gap there because of Christmas. So we don't have to do another one. They're leaking over into the next week, but of course we'll hop on that here as we move on for the next show. So lots of games there. Hope you had some fun kind of going along with us through those, and hopefully we'll do well for you, and we'll have some fun stuff to talk about here next time around. I'm definitely looking forward to having kind of this holiday weekend and a lot to sit down and enjoy, that's for sure.
Yeah, when you're talking about that Saturday slate of games, I'm just thinking, oh man, I can just. That's one time I can just be at home. I don't even need to be anywhere. Just sit down and have my screens going and just chill out and relax. Because I can't imagine we have any event scheduled being the Christmas holiday. But I shouldn't speak too early because that's when some coach thinks it's a good idea to have a Christmas practice and everyone wear their Christmas sweaters and
Oh yeah, no, no
you know how
thanks.
these youth sports are. Ugh.
A little rough sometimes for sure. I'm trying to. I'm diving into the world myself now as a coach, so I'm trying to be reasonable and staying thin on things. And now I've already gone above and beyond what I've said I was going to do to begin with. So
That's how it goes. That's how they get you, man. That's why I've done it a few times, but you try to if it's the last resort, then you step in. Otherwise,
yeah.
gets a little hairy.
Yeah, we'll see how I power through. But yeah, hope you have some fun with the games this weekend. We appreciate you joining us. We'd appreciate if you would comment, give us some reviews online, share us with other folks that love college football and love wagering and just having a little fun with games. And we would appreciate you sharing the word. You can follow us on social media if you're on the Twitter platform at SJM Bets and at Cherokee CP, the two handles. And you could look for the graphic that we'll put up there for you to kind of give you the guide for the picks that we've made here on the show as well. And then, of course, you can listen to the program on Spotify, Amazon, and on the Google platforms as well. So lots of ways to find it, and we'll share it out on our socials as well. So we appreciate you being along for the ride. We'll look forward to fun holidays. Hope everybody has a Merry Christmas, too. Happy holidays,
Yeah,
folks.
same to you. Hope you were good and Santa gets you everything your heart desires.
Yeah, I hope you were on the nice list. That's for sure.
Yeah, yeah. All I need is a couple cold beers and maybe a bottle of whiskey, and I'm set.
Exactly. I don't need much anymore to make us
Hell
happy.
no. Day off, relax, peace of
hit,
quiet.
hit a couple
That's
bets. Yeah.
anything that's free. Yeah, is good.
All right. Thanks for listening to another week of Every Day We're Covering. We'll see you again next week for some more covers.